It's time for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group with financial advisors Kevin Korhorn, Mike Bernard, and Josh Gregory.
Welcome to another episode of the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group, where every week we're helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. Thanks for being with us. My name is Mike Bernard. I am your host. I'm also one of the certified financial planners. With me in the KFG studios, my business partners and friends, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory.
Some of the most important features of the recent economic stimulus have been directed to small businesses. And whether you own a small business or you're employed by one, it's important to know what kind of help has been directed your way. We're making sense of the CARES Act and other relief aid for small businesses on today's episode of the Wise Money Show.
My goodness, if you have questions, reach out. Typically, this is a call for questions for the show, and you can always send those over. But for you small businesses, and I'm talking small business owners, managers, or just a team member, this stuff is confusing. If you're unsure if you guys are taking your right next step, contact us. You can do so a few different ways. You can call us or text us at 574-222-2000. That's 574-222-2000. You can find us online, wisemoneyshow.com. And then all over social media, you can follow us there and you can reach out to us there as well. Just search the Wise Money Show wherever you're at. All right, guys, before we get into the CARES Act and all of the minutia, and we won't get too deep in it, but we'll just tell you what you need to know. How do you interpret what's going on in the market right now?
Boy, this has been an interesting ride, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I personally have been referring to this as just a classic event-driven bear market. And a lot of people are like, classic, what are you talking about? We've never seen anything like this before. And sure, it has been one of the steepest, fastest declines in history. However, it still has all the same ingredients that a typical bear market would have. This thing started because investors had gotten too complacent with risk. We had kind of assumed that the good times were going to keep on rolling indefinitely. And then the second ingredient is what is the spark? It's a surprise that comes along. And sometimes in history, that surprise has been a war or an oil crisis, or someone flies a plane into a building. A historic, Wall Street bank goes bankrupt. Whatever the triggering event is, that second ingredient, if you will, it's what sends things down because investors are suddenly waking up to the fact that, maybe the good times won't just keep on rolling uninterrupted indefinitely forever. And that's, this is the first time in generations that it's been a pandemic that caused that to decline. But this one is unique in the sense that bear markets are always predicting a recession that's coming. It's predicting where the economy is going. And this time, the economy, stalled immediately because it was basically just put on hold, and the bear market happened almost simultaneously.
Yeah, that's the tricky thing about this recent bounce back in the stock market is the market telling us that, hey, this is going to be a V-shaped quick recovery because the market is a leading indicator of the economy? Or is this a little bit of greed mixed in to the pool here based on the unprecedented stimulus that we're going to be keep talking about here in just a moment? Kevin, what's your take?
These are very interesting times that, when people talk about the market being in some sort of a free fall, it's not. It did a power dive. So the fastest decline in history as we're watching kind of peak to trough. And now it's come back, and it does appear as though the stock market is climbing the mountain of cash that the Fed has put in to support to get on the other side of all kinds of different bad bets and bail out the money guys. And I would say the money guys are the people in the financiers and the people that they don't produce anything. They just make money with money. So those guys, unfortunately, depending on your perspective, are getting bailed out as well because of the different types of instruments they've used that work in good times and when things work. But what we're seeing is really unprecedented, and it does feel a little bit like we're living in a movie. And I don't know about you, I'd rather watch a movie than live in one, because with a movie, if it's bad, you can turn it off, or you can, if you want to know how it ends, you can fast forward to the end. We're not. We're living that movie and trying to figure it out. I would imagine, if you're asking for what my call is, and I have no idea. Anyone who tells you they know is totally wrong. I would imagine we're gonna, with another 6 million unemployment claims this past week. I would imagine that that's probably going to happen for a number of weeks, and we'll get to 20 or 30 million unemployed. I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm assuming the pricing that the stock market has been doing to suggest, hey, this might be a V-shaped recovery. I think that might be erased at some point, and it might acknowledge that this might be a U-shaped recovery, because as I read the headlines and it said Americans are losing their jobs at a historic pace. The next thing, the next headline that I'm waiting for is what are they losing next? Are they losing their cars? Are they losing their homes? It's like this bad country song.
Well, we heard it. What comes next? We actually heard it before. The day before the unemployment came out, the headline was a third of Americans did not pay their rent for April. And so anytime you're trying to argue with Wall Street, that's a dangerous game. Saying I know more than Wall Street, that's a very dangerous game. And so you want to make sure that you have an investment system where it doesn't rely on that works in good times and in bad times, where you don't have to grab the wheel and try to gamble. My kids asked me what gambling was yesterday, and I told them, I looked them right in the eye and I said, it's investing. No, I'm just kidding. It's very different. Oh, I said it's a chance that you could lose all your money because you're saying this is going to happen, and you might be right, you might be wrong. That is not investing. And if you start saying, I know more than Wall Street, and therefore I'm going to do this, you run the risk of making a big blunder, financial blunder, so much so that either financially you don't recover or emotionally you don't recover, and then you're out of the game. So don't do that. Make sure you've got a good system. The only hope, in my opinion, that there is for a V-shaped recovery is this stimulus that we're going to be paying for eons and eons and eons. But in the short term, Josh said last week, it's like a firefighter who's fighting a fire. They're not trying to figure out how many gallons of water, and no, they'll pour on as much water as it takes. And that's really what Congress has done. Now, they also made it as complicated as possible. I think they did come out and say, how can we make this thing the most confusing thing on the planet? And they've done that. They certainly have achieved that. So we're gonna break it down. The very first, and I guess let me just preface a bit, if I can. There's sort of 5 stimulus areas that impact your small business, and I'll tell you, the first 2 that we're going to hit, a lot of financial professionals believe that they're the same thing. In fact, even some CPAs we were talking to this week said that, oh, yep, these are the same thing. No, they're very different. They have different features and very different benefits. What I'm talking about is hard for me to pronounce for some reason, but the Paycheck Protection Program.
Nice job.
The PPP loan. And then the other one is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. EIDL.
Oh.
Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. But those are 2 different loan programs. They were kind of birthed from the CARES Act, and they're connected to the SBA. And so we're going to tell you the difference between the 2, not all the details, but enough so that you know what to do and what your next wise step is. So we've got that and more coming up here on The Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for being here. This is The Wise Money Show. You're at The Wise Money Show channel. If it's your first time here, please subscribe. You need to do that because each and every day during this crisis, we're coming to you with a daily financial nugget, a next wise step every single business day that you can apply to your life. So we're talking about the CARES Act right now. A lot of these details have already been flushed out in sort of a nugget format. So make sure you subscribe to the Wise Money Show channel. Turn on that notification button so every business day as we release more content, you're notified. If you're supposed to be working from home, don't even watch it then. Just watch it later at a break, and then give it that thumbs up. That helps other people who are looking for wise financial content find us. Thank you. All right, so I had to take it, and then it wasn't even, you can't even explain the PPP in a minute. So we just had a minute.
I'm saying that this is bonus content galore, because I have way too many things running through my head. But I just think about this, and we were just watching some home movies of 2008 when we went a number of different places with the kids because they were 8, 6, and 4, and kind of a fun age. And I'm thinking, there's probably, like, the acronym for this, it probably some congressman who was working from home and his kids were potty talking. That's how he came up with the...
I think he was playing Scrabble and said, okay, these are the letters I have. What can I make? What can I make with this?
So when your kids ask you, Dad, what is gambling? When my kids did that, I said, honey, get in the car, load the kids up. We're going to the casino. And
well, I would have, but this social distancing stuff, I wasn't able to. No, Carrington and Kuiper were asking, and I told them, yeah, it's you trying to predict what's going to happen and betting, and you communicate in extremes to your kids to try and scare them or try and excite them, but where you could lose all your money. And then Kuiper, well, do you have to lose all your money? Well, no, you could, And so, but then they asked if we gambled, and we don't. And some of you do as a pastime or whatever, but we don't. And then they asked why, and we said, well, it's, could be very addicting for some people and can be very dangerous. And then Cindy went into the, working hard and all that sort of stuff. So, but investing is not gambling. It's not. And so that's where I would tell you to, this is bonus content, but I also, you look at the economy, and it does seem like we're getting it backwards this time, because the economy started, like, it stopped, and then Wall Street reacted. And now Wall Street's changing its course, and we're getting newer and newer signs that the economy is really, really in a tough spot. So is Wall Street just foreshadowing here, or is Wall Street getting it wrong?
So this is why when you think about investing, you need to not really care about what the right answer is, because Wall Street's either getting it right or wrong, and we'll find out. But the reality is, if you're investing with a goal in mind, then you're not really gambling. Yep. And then you'll look back over time, and there'll be a leveling or a smoothing, and you'll say, well, 2019 was a great year, and 2020 was horrible. And so... Or
you might say it started terrible and turned out okay, right? Or
whatever.
Who knows?
So who knows? But it was funny because you said that a third of the rents went unpaid. And do you guys know who the Stray Cats were? It's a band. Stray Cat Strut. Black and orange.
What century was that from?
Stray cat sitting on a fence. Ain't got enough dough to pay the rent. Love that, man. There are a bunch of oldsters that are listening saying, yep.
Yeah.
I'm flat broken. I don't care. I strut right by with my tail in the air.
All right. Let's, it would be nice to hit the PPP and the EIDL in the same segment. I don't want to bounce back and forth if we can avoid it, because they are so confusing. But it might have, since we didn't really talk about the PPP in that segment, it might be good to talk about these two. All right. Ready? Are we ready, Lindsay? Oh yeah, we're rolling. We're rolling. My goodness.
Shoot, baby.
What is the Paycheck Protection Program, and should your small business be applying for it? Should you have already applied for it? That's what we're going to explain here in just a second. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being with us. My name is Mike Bernard. Here with me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. To stay up to date on all the Wise Money content, you'll find us online at thewisemoneyshow.com, and then all over social media. Just search The Wise Money Show. Follow us there so you're up to date as we're posting new content about what's going on in the crisis and what you need to be doing in your finances. So wherever you're at in social media, just search The Wise Money Show and follow us there. All right, so we're talking about the CARES Act. This is part 2 of a 2-part series about this enormous new law that changed a lot of the game in finances to help the economy stimulate here. And one of the major parts is the aid that it's bringing to small businesses. And in particular, the one that's caught a lot of attention is something called the Paycheck Protection Program loan. This is very confusing, but very interesting. Josh, can you help us understand it?
Yeah, I've been fascinated by this, and I spent a lot of time actually reading the bill and trying to get my mind wrapped around this. And it's interesting because you can see what the legislative intent was here by the strings that are attached to this program. Essentially, if the government wants to get money dumped out into the hands of small business owners, you wouldn't just drop money in their laps like is happening with the recovery rebates that are going to taxpayers. Those $1,200 checks, those are going straight in your bank account. But that's not how it's going to work with small businesses. They're creating these strings attached by calling it a loan. It's a loan that they can take, but as long as they use the funds for the intended purposes, which are to keep the doors open, keep the lights on, keep the people paid, right? This is intended to help. Ultimately, most of this is going to land in the employee's hands. So it's another bailout. We call it a small business bailout in a way, but ultimately this is going to Americans' pockets through a paycheck.
Yeah, so the big idea here is this is a loan through the Small Business Association. You've got to go through an SBA-approved lender to apply for it. So reach out to us if you have questions, but ultimately you got to go through an SBA lender to apply for it. It's a low-interest, short-term loan that has a forgivable feature. So how much is the loan? It's 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. And they define payroll the only way Congress can, which is in a confusing way. So make sure you're working with someone as you figure that out. But 2.5 times your monthly payroll, your monthly average payroll. And then that's your loan, okay? And then once you're approved and you receive that money, how much of it is forgiven? It's the amount that's forgiven is the amount of that loan that you use for a few certain things. Payroll is one, and rent and utilities over the next 8 weeks. So it's really designed for businesses. I mean, if you think about it, unemployment stepped in for businesses that just needed to furlough employees and let people go. But what about the business who's had revenue dried up, but they still need to keep their to stay operating because you need certain employees, or hopefully you still need all of your employees, and you're still paying rent and you're still paying utilities. If the economy is shut down, how do you get money to make sure your business doesn't go under? Enter the Paycheck Protection Program.
Yeah.
So
I love this plan. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people who just don't trust it. In fact, there may be other radio hosts out there that are saying, don't even do it. This is a loan. You shouldn't ever take a loan. Well, you know what? It's called a loan so that, Congress can joystick this money and direct where it goes. But as long as you use it for its intended purposes, those payroll expenses, which include, by the way, contributions to retirement plans from the employer to the employee, and also health care or health insurance premiums. So that's a big deal. It allows maybe many small businesses to have confidence that they've got cash to get them through the next 8 weeks, so that they don't have the knee-jerk reaction to just start laying people off or furloughing their employees.
Yeah, and I've talked with a number of small business owners, and my question to them is, hey, have you applied for the loan? because that if you're looking 30,000 feet up and you're kind of looking down at this thing and you say, well, what are all of the details that I need to know? I wouldn't get too hung up on that. And it's sometimes it's tempting to just say it's so complicated, I'm going to not function. And you could be looking at what's happened in the last 6 weeks, and you might not be functioning at your peak as it is right now. So to try and navigate through this thing, and you might say, hey, I'm a small business. I don't have a corporate accountant. I don't have a CFO. I don't have a controller. I don't have all of these people. That might be one of the challenges. Another challenge might be I don't have an established banking relationship.
Yeah, many SBA lender banks have said we're not going to serve new clients. You got to be an existing client of ours. I'm facing that right now with one of my clients who's saying, "Hey, my bank is not an SBA approved lender."
Yeah, that's a problem. And you don't want to villainize these banks, because the reality is they are being overwhelmed by the number of small businesses that are applying for this. They only have so many resources to be able to serve so many people. And if brand new relationships come out of the woodwork, they'll be completely overrun.
Right. And the tricky thing about a brand new relationship is the bank has a program like this is going to be fraught with fraud. You just know that's going to be happening. A bank has know your customer rules, just like we do in the securities business. So they have to verify the legitimacy and the identity of every new person that's coming on. And these guys are just absolutely buried in trying to get these loans out. And even though one of our show sponsors, First State Bank, was the second bank in Indiana to get one of these loans approved, they still have a mountain of work to do. They're working hard. They're working around the clock, but it's hard, especially when not everyone's in the office. I mean, these are very interesting times.
Absolutely. One of the reasons that many small business owners are getting hung up on this program is, yes, it seems complicated. Maybe it seems too good to be true, and they don't trust whether or not they can actually count on the money being forgiven. But there's also a provision that says they have to certify in good faith that the economic uncertainty that they're facing is requiring that they need this money to help get through this period of time, to help support their ongoing normal business operations. And some business owners are like, well, it hasn't been that bad yet, or I don't know if I can really say that. And so it's causing them to just stop. And, this is a time to be reaching out to a trusted advisor who can help you kind of think through, does this program apply to you? Or do you need to be looking at some of the other programs that are built into the CARES Act instead?
Mm-hmm. I mean, one of them in particular we're gonna introduce now and break it down, and that's the Economic Injury and Disaster Loan. And that is so if the Paycheck Protection Program is a low interest rate short-term loan, the EIDL is a low interest rate long-term loan. If you're running a small business and you say, listen, the aid that I need, the loan, the support that I need, it goes beyond 2.5 times my monthly payroll. I need a longer extension of credit here, and the revenue has just stopped. And so going through conventional means to get a loan from the bank just really doesn't seem possible right now, because the finances of my business look so uncertain. Where's my lifeline? It's the EIDL. The loan can be up to $2 million and be the repayment stretched over many, many years. We're going to tell you a little bit more about that, as well as a few other small business benefits in the CARES Act. That and more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. All right, we're just going to take a short break here before we jump back in. Public service announcement doesn't need much advance here, but it doesn't really seem like Easter weekend, because you probably didn't buy the sundress for your daughter, and so it might feel a little bit different. And as a believer, one of the things that I learned really early on that I try to remember, and I say that because it's hard, and that is that God is not a feeling. and your faith shouldn't be based on a feeling. And even Mother Teresa struggled with this. I heard later in her life, she struggled with feeling the presence of God. And so even though it doesn't feel like Easter, celebrate Easter. Celebrate Easter. And if you're not going to be able to go to a family gathering, FaceTime the family. If you're not going to be able to, spend time with neighbors or whatever, show them some love and support. And if you're not going to be able to go attend a church physically and get all dressed up, attend one virtually or get into the Word and read about what happened. And so celebrate Easter.
Yeah, that's good. You know what people are starved for right now, it seems, is hope. Mm-hmm. And so why not take the extra time to look back on the most hopeful event that has ever happened?
Yep.
That's great. Good stuff, Mike.
Yeah.
All right.
So and we've been talking a lot about the antidote to hope. So
antidote to fear.
That's what. Yeah, we've been talking about.
What church do you go to?
Get that hope out of here. No, we've been talking about the old guy in the office and how senile he is. He's almost Joe Biden-esque. So there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. And so there you go. The antidote to fear is love. And you got to have hope. And you, especially now, figuring out how to live in gratitude. I mean, I saw the bluebirds this morning on the bluebird on their house. Mm-hmm. They have no idea that this is going on.
That's a good point.
And the squirrels and the geese flying over and the turkeys and the deer and everything else. I mean, it's just...
I remember having that epiphany because back in 2008, when the meltdown was happening, I was in a rocking chair in the hospital holding our brand new baby boy, just rocking him, trying to let my wife sleep. And I remember having that thought, he doesn't even know how crazy it is out there. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't care. Look at him sleeping as a baby. So, yeah, that's a great perspective.
All right, let's jump back in. So this is third segment, 9:15, okay? And we got to close out a thought. Whatever the thought is, we got to close it at the end of the segment as much as possible.
And I'm going to read a text in bonus content for the next...
All right. So let's quickly get through the EIDL. I think I laid a lot of it out. I don't know what else to hit, maybe the $10,000. And then we'll get into the retention credit at a high level.
You laid a lot of it out?
Well, we can restate it. So.
And on that farm, he had a loan. EIDL.
Just this past week, there was yet another stimulus that's been rolled out to help small businesses. It really looks like it's an extension of the CARES Act, but it's now, what is that? The fourth stimulus package. So we're breaking it down for you. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name's Mike Bernard. Here with me in the KFG studios, as always, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, search The Wise Money Show, and don't forget, subscribe to it, turn on notifications. We're posting daily videos about what you should be doing in your financial life in the midst of this crisis. And of course, every episode, the full episode, even bonus content during the breaks is right there at the YouTube channel. So check it out, YouTube, search The Wise Money Show. All right, so a little bit left to hit on the second big aid to small businesses during the CARES Act, and that's the Economic Injury and Disaster Loan. So again, let me just hit the highlights so you're aware. It's different than the PPP because there really isn't a forgiveness program, okay? The PPP loan is a low interest, short-term loan that has a forgivable feature. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan, EIDL, is a low interest, long-term loan. The loan can be up to $2 million. You can get a $10,000 advance of it if for certain qualifications, And then that part can be forgiven. By the way, it goes against your PPP loan. Oh my goodness, so confusing. But it can be a higher loan, much longer term. Anything I'm missing, Josh?
No, I would just maybe say that this is a more traditional approach to getting a loan as well, where there is collateral involved. And although you can get a loan up to $200,000 without having a personal guarantee attached to it. Mm-hmm. So, those who are sensitive to, well, I don't want to be borrowing money. It feels like I'm getting kicked while I'm down, when you have to borrow money during a major crisis like this. However, again, this is another form of lifeline potentially that you have a long time to pay back at a very low interest rate. And some people may start applying some creativity to this and using it maybe to refinance some debt. You just have to be careful and totally understand the provisions of this, because there are some limitations where you can't be using this loan to cover the exact same things that the PPP loan were being used for.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. Really, your banker should be the one who is helping steer you through all of this as well.
So if you're interested in this, or you're unsure, again, not just if you own a small business, if you lead a small business, if you lead a team, or if you just work at a small business, you've got to at least know these things to say, well, what step should I take? So if you're interested, this one you apply directly through the SBA, but I'd still talk to your banker about it.
Hey, can we say one more thing? Because the definition of small business.
Oh, yeah.
Some people may not see themselves as a small business because you're just a sole proprietor. You're a subcontractor somewhere. These programs have been expanded to the point where, the definition of small business is much more broad than ever before. So, on that PPP loan that we were discussing in the last segment, even many 501c3 nonprofit organizations, many charities actually can benefit from that program. Same thing with some of these sole proprietors. You may not have seen yourself as really having these available to you in the past, and all of a sudden the rules have changed to expand who can benefit.
All right. So,
So Josh, I want to back up for a sec to your point. You talked about kind of feeling like you're getting kicked when you're down here. And so the only thing worse than being in dire straits financially and taking a loan is not having a loan available.
Yeah.
So this goes back to the first segment when Mike's kids asked him about, Daddy, what is gambling? This is gambling. When my business is on the rocks, I don't know if I'm going to survive, and I have to make a decision. I'm either going to lever up on risk and borrow money that I may or may not be able to pay back, and the boat can float again and be able to pay the money back, or I'm going to throw in the towel. And this is, and you might be at that point, and you might be feeling despair, and if you are, reach out and get some help.
I would just add one other thing, and this is not the intent of this show, but there's another option there. It's not just one of those two. It's innovate. And innovate and make some tough decisions. And when I love looking at great businesses, especially great small businesses, and established 1928, 1929, 1930. These crises require people to come up with their best and innovate. And I am excited about the innovation that small businesses are going to need to do in response to this crisis. So that's don't just say that silver lining. That's the real deal. Okay, then the third stimulus to help small businesses as part of the CARES Act is the employee retention credit. Now, this is really designed for businesses that have seen a steep decline in revenue. In fact, they call it a 50% decline that quarter compared to the same quarter your previous year. So what's required there? You need to have good books and records. Make sure you've got your accounting up to date.
The other trigger that can make you eligible for this is that the government required you to shut down, suspended operations for a period of time as well.
And basically what is this? It is a credit that you get for continuing to pay your employees during that either required shutdown or severe revenue drop. And basically you can get a credit for up to $10,000 per employee, I think, if I'm reading this right. And that credit goes against your payroll taxes. So that's a way to give you that money or have that money available to you immediately. So you've got to have a steep decline, and you got to keep your employees on payroll. This is a way to help the not overrun the unemployment system.
It's also different, though, than another provision that's baked into the CARES Act that allows small business owners to postpone the payment of their payroll taxes. So you may have never given it much thought before, but your employer has to pay in a portion of your Social Security and Medicare taxes every pay period. Mm-hmm. They send that in on a quarterly basis, most firms. But they're allowed to hang on to that cash, allow it to stay in their coffers a little longer to get through this crisis. They can postpone those payments. But this one that you were just referring to is an actual credit. And credit is an important word because it puts money in the pocket of the business for doing something that Congress has said is really important.
Yeah, that actually happened last year with a local company that was a payroll provider.
Oh, my goodness.
But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you made this distinction because this is also very, very confusing. A lot of small business owners are confusing the PPP and the EIDL. And a lot of small businesses are confusing the employee retention credit and the payroll tax deferral. A credit, like Josh said, keeps money in your pocket. It means you don't have to pay the tax, okay? But the payroll tax deferral, I don't have a lot of people wanting to take advantage of that. But it's basically the payroll taxes that you otherwise would need to pay from March 27 of 2020 until 12/31 of 2020, you can actually not pay those and keep those in your pocket and then pay half of those in 2021 and the other half in 2022. So what is that? Why would you do it? It's a short-term loan. It's a short-term loan from the government. You still owe the money to the government, but they're letting you keep it in your pocket.
And it's an interest-free short-term loan as well.
Just be careful because the way out of a hole is not to dig deeper.
Yeah. Right.
So this is a way that we've seen lots of folks get in trouble.
Here again, you need wisdom to navigate this, not just to know the rules, but to know what the appropriate step is for you. The Wise Money Show, we're helping provide some of that baseline for you, but you need a personal financial planning relationship to figure out what would wisdom do and what's my next wise step in the face of this. So if that's your small business, make sure you reach out and get some help. All right, one more item in the stimulus package. We've got that and more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Okay, guys, so I might have said something that you're confused with, but I am just going to show you the...
What, the Small Business Association?
You just can't make it up. So the headline was right. You said the headline... What's the headline right after... Another 6 million.
Up, right.
It did. It went from down a couple hundred to up 300-400 because of the expansion to the PPP. Another 150 billion.
Every time I hear that, I think I want to yell into the other room, "Boys, quit potty talking."
I say,
so
you know me.
So here's. I want to read a text. How are we doing for time? Are we going into the third segment or
Fourth. So it's
Are you
13
serious?
minute. It's 13-minuter.
Stinking word.
And it's
Okay. This is quick. But I talked to a friend yesterday who was struggling, and he thought he was having a money struggle. He said, "Look, I've got $23 to my name. My wife won't talk to me. My soon-to-be ex-wife won't talk to me. I've got to give the car back. I've got to do all of these various things." And so, and I knew what he wanted, and I knew what he needed. So we talked for an hour while I was getting ready for work yesterday morning, and I said, "Hey, hold on. I'm going to brush my teeth. You talk for 2 minutes. And I got dressed and got ready for work, and then I needed to hop on a call, so I had to be done. But he sent me a text, just wanted to thank you again. I was freaking out because I didn't know how to be broke. I thought I needed money, but money without the proper mindset and direction and action is just a stopgap. My pride kept me thinking I had to be strong enough to do it on my own, but I need the higher power for that strength. I fail if only using my strength. I knew this, but had spiraled so bad I wasn't seeing it. For some reason, after talking to you and much work with my sponsor, everything became clear yesterday. I have a lot of work to do, and it will take some time and much effort and humility. I'm so grateful, Snuggle Bunny. You have no idea. Love you, brother. So it is
lots of emotion in there. I mean, I'm like, that's true, and then I'm confused now with how you ended that.
So it goes.
A story there, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, it goes. My relationship with this person goes way, way, way back, and he's more of a brother to me than a friend. But this is the thing: people right now are traumatized. So if you reach out to someone and they say, "Hey, I need money," money is the easy solve. Don't go to the easy solve. Help them understand money might be the presenting problem. It's not the problem. What is the problem? And in talking through someone and saying, hey, no, your ex-wife didn't get the $1,200 check because none of the $1,200 checks have been sent yet. Because when you need the money tomorrow, it's only weeks away.
Yeah.
So this is where talking to people right now, and if you're listening or watching, I'd say there's someone you need to be talking to right now that needs some encouragement from you. Because if you're watching this, you are somewhat curious about money, and that makes you different than most of the rest of the people in the world. And I'd say go find that person you need to help right now. If you want an action step, write down the list of names of the people you need to be talking to, and when you're done watching this podcast, go talk to them.
Yeah. All right. Fourth segment, Landon Plane 13. All right. We're breaking down the CARES Act, the economic stimulus to you, and a couple more things to hit for small businesses, but then we're going to wrap it up with a few more applications for you individually. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being with us. My name is Mike Bernard. Here with me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. If you listen to podcast, you'll find the Wise Money Show every single episode, the full thing right there on podcast. Wherever you listen, if that's iTunes or Google Play or wherever it is, just search the Wise Money Show, sign up for it, and rate the show. That helps other people find us. Thank you very much. All right, so I said at the onset that if you were to make it really, really simple, because, again, that's what we're trying to do with this really complex CARES Act, that there are 5 real meaningful provisions to help small businesses. And this is where, Josh, your wisdom earlier to define small business really applies, because they're defining small businesses as 500 or fewer, or fewer than 500 employees. But that also applies if you are a one-man band or a one-person band, but that doesn't rhyme as well.
Or a gig employee.
Or a gig employee, a freelancer, that sort of thing. You're included in this, and you're really included in this 5th one here. And that is something called pandemic unemployment assistance. So let me talk to you if you are a barber, if you are a hairstylist, if you are an independent contractor, if you thought it was a good idea to take the early buyout package from your employer and just work as a contractor for the next several years before you wanted to retire. I'm talking to you. If you are an outside salesperson for your company, and because you're outside and because you get to choose your own process, your own approach, you are an independent contractor, this applies to you. If all of those things that I said and more, if you're not able to do it anymore, you have no revenue coming in. And if you don't have revenue coming in, you might say, I need that PPP loan because it'll be forgiven. That's an injection in cash. But if you don't have an employee to keep paying, or you're not paying rent because you work out of your car or on the phone, that PPP loan does not apply to you. So what could apply to you? Unemployment insurance. Now, this one baffles me because you've never paid into unemployment. If you're not sure how money even gets there, it actually an employer pays into unemployment every year for its employees, every year. But for self-employed, for sole proprietors, you don't pay into unemployment. And yet, out of the foresight of Congress, they created a provision. It's actually a new program called Pandemic Unemployment Insurance, which allows people that otherwise wouldn't be eligible for unemployment to receive it.
That's right. This is really a big deal. It's kind of a game changer, and it's kind of married to another unemployment enhancement that we talked about a little bit last week. And, we've seen these staggering numbers of all of a sudden people filing for unemployment. Why is that happening? Partially because some small businesses just need to catch their breath a little bit. They need to hit the pause button. They're furloughing employees, maybe very temporarily. We'll see. But they're doing so, at least some of them that I've spoken with, because they recognize that their employees are going to get not only the normal unemployment that a state provides, but also a federal benefit that enhances it. It's an extra $600 per week above and beyond what the state is offering. That's for 16 weeks long. So there are many people that could be getting as much as almost $1,000 per week, not working. Mm-hmm. For some, that may even feel like a pay raise as well. So this unemployment benefit is really, it's meant to keep people at home and not be in crisis mode as much, because being at home is what helps with the healthcare side of all this. Yeah. But it's helping to alleviate the economic pain that people are feeling when they get laid off.
You want my prediction?
Sure.
There is no free lunch. So even to say I'm getting this from the government doesn't have any money, as Kevin loves to point out, and that's such helpful reminder for your thinking. Because if you let your brain say I'm getting this from the government, and you don't recognize where it comes from, it's like saying I'm getting my chicken from the grocery store. Well, nope, they actually get it from real chickens, farmers, right? And so with this, I wonder if they will introduce a new unemployment tax for small businesses. Small businesses, if you're an independent contractor, you already feel like you're getting raked over the coals because you've got to pay both sides of FICA. They call it self-employment tax. You got to pay self-employment tax. You got to pay your federal. You got to pay your state and local. I wonder if they introduce a new unemployment tax.
It could be. And if you're at all a conspiracy theorist, and I try to not be one, but I do enjoy listening to those guys. I mean, a lot of those guys are saying, look, all of these things are in essence just bailing out the banks and making sure that the banks don't fail. Because the money, your $1,000 a month of unemployment, or a week of unemployment, that's going to go to the bank. It's going to cover your car payment. It's going to cover your house payment. It's going to cover your student loan payment. It's going to cover your rent payment, up and down the line. So if you've always been the person who's levered up with debt and said, hey, I've got $300 a month, therefore I can drive a car, and I've got this, therefore this, this is where the tide is going out, and we'll see who's wearing a bathing suit.
Well, is that really the lesson, though? And there's a couple more things we need to hit here, but one of the moral hazards in all of this is how quick the government was and how broad this stimulus is. You might say, well, I guess I didn't need that emergency fund.
What do I need to prepare for?
Yeah. And I think more so, as we wrap up the discussion about small businesses, I think more so for some small businesses, I guess I didn't need to run my business like I was trying to run my household. I didn't need that cash reserve. I didn't need to have these protections in place, this margin in place. We can run it, though. I can bring the bank account down to zero on December 31st every year. And I'd say that's not principle based. And so I'd very much caution you from taking that lesson away.
It's not principle based, and we've seen in history where what we assume to be true turns out to not be true, and that's what caught Lehman Brothers in the last meltdown that we had in 2008. They went bankrupt because surely the government wouldn't let a bank fail like this, right? Not one as big as Lehman Brothers. So you're exactly right. There are some moral hazards here. There are some almost unintended learnings, and that when this is all said and done, there are going to be some lessons that we can all pull from this, and we'll be talking about them. Right now, when people are genuinely scared and hurting, isn't a time to say, I told you so, and we're not doing that. However, our hope is that maybe some of the silver lining in all of this crisis will be that people realize, I need to make sure I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. I need that emergency fund that people are always talking about, I can see how that actually matters now.
And so if this unemployment is a little boost, it is a raise. We told you last week, don't get used to that. Be a good steward of that. And that might be, if it is a raise, be setting some money aside. All right, a couple other features here that apply to individuals within the CARES Act. Now, this one I actually like because we're big fans of the HSA, not because we're big fans of high deductible health plans. It's just puts the health insurance, your health costs, makes you personally responsible for those and more aware of it. And with rising healthcare costs, many companies are turning to high deductible health plans. So the HSA is a savings account that you can create. If you have a qualifying high deductible health plan, you put money into that HSA, and on the way in, it avoids tax, and then you use the money for the right things, for medical expenses, and it comes out avoiding tax. Well, within the CARES Act, they made a permanent rule change with HSAs. Permanent, not just for this year. Many of the provisions are just for this year. This one's permanent, and that is you can now use your HSA to purchase over-the-counter medications, even for women, feminine products, are now all qualified, eligible medical expenses for HSA use. So almost anything in CVS.
Isn't it interesting, though? That's how it used to be. When HSAs came out, you used to be able to purchase over-the-counter medications, and then during the Obama administration, they took that away. They were kind of chipping away at the goodness of the HSA. Now it's being re-expanded, and I couldn't be happier about that.
I know, it never made sense why they chipped it away. It really didn't make sense.
Well, it does make sense if there's two schools of thought. One school of thought is people should pay for their own stuff, and the other is you should give your money to the government, and the government should pay for your stuff. Mm-hmm. So it just depends on what side of that coin you end up on.
I would caution while you collect your that next thought, Kevin. I'd caution you for just going out and using this to now buy Advil and everything else. Make sure if you have a medical emergency, what could that be? Oh, the coronavirus, and you have some medical complications or whatever, and you then hit your deductible. Your HSA can be a type of medical emergency fund. If you start using it for Advil, it might not be there when you need it. So just be wise.
Yeah, and we know this. You're not using that HSA to buy toilet paper because you can't find it.
That's right. All right, a couple other enhancements we'll probably call it after this, and that is dealing with student loans. Josh, can you touch on these or just introduce them?
Well, so there's a provision in this stimulus package that allows student loan borrowers, recent graduates, to postpone or to pause the payment on their student loans until September 30th of this year. And during that time, you're not going to be penalized for stopping your payments. You're also not going to have your interest accruing on these, and this is for federally backed student loans in particular. There's also another provision that's built in that allows small business owners to help pay student loans for their employees. Up to $5,250 can go towards the repayment of an employee's student loans without it counting as income to them.
Does that have to go directly to the student loan, or can it be filtered through the employee? I can't remember
I actually don't know the answer to that. But that's a new feature that has not existed before.
Yeah, and that's a way for those of you that are wanting to help want to help your employees maybe during this challenging time in your small business, either has the resources or you've done well or you're holding up okay, then that's a good option.
But what if it was even just almost a strategy that you enter into with your employee? What if you allowed them to reduce their paycheck in exchange for you making payments on this? Here's the deal. If an employee got $5,250 without any taxes, that puts them in a position where they're saving anywhere from $1,300 to $1,800 worth of tax just by sending the money to their student loan instead of to them.
As Kevin says, that's real money. That's real money. All right. I hope this has helped you. And the CARES Act is very complicated, but once again, turn to your certified financial planner to figure out how you make sense of all this and how you take your next wise step. Don't have one? Reach out to us. We'd love to help. Find us online, corehorn.com. That's all the time we have for today. On behalf of Kevin Corhorn, myself, and Josh Gregory, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday for Wise Money with Corhorn Financial Group.
Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through KFG Wealth Management, LLC. Doing business as Corhorn Financial Group. KFG Wealth Management, LLC and Silver Oak Securities Incorporated companies are unaffiliated.